Jason Ryan Dorsey. Best-selling author, internationally acclaimed speaker,
I said, if any of you could give one piece of advice that would help your Gen Y workers, what would you tell them that's going to just change their life, make their career work? And this gentleman stands up and says, pull up your pants! To me, when I talk about a generation, what I mean is a generation is a geographically linked segment of a population that experience similar social and cultural events at roughly the same time in their maturation. In plain English, it means they're about the same age, at about the same time, and lived in a similar place. Now, that's important for a few reasons. One, geographically linked. When I work overseas, people talk about Gen Y. And when I go and interview those young people and their beliefs and values, expectations, habits, they're different than those in the U.S. So when we talk about generations as being of a certain age, for Gen Y, baby boomers, Gen X, matures, when we're looking at what's in our workforce, it's a very U.S.-centric definition. So everything I'm going to share applies to the U.S., but don't necessarily assume, in particular those of you that work with international employees, that it's going to automatically translate. The way I look at a generation is this. It's not a box. It's clues. It's just clues on where to start when you're interacting, managing, and leading people. How many of you have already seen some generational conflict within your organization? Anybody? How many of you have written a note to somebody that was really important only to find out they can't read cursive? That's the kind of conflict we're going to see more and more and more of, in particular in your organizations, where Gen Y is increasingly important. When we talk about how different are the generations, how fast are they really changing, the best example I have involves me and my wife. My wife is awesome. She's 6 years older than me. Yes, I'm that good. At texting. And we start dating. And so I do what a Gen Y would do. I'm sending her text messages. We're at lunch one day. We've been dating a month. Her phone goes off, and she goes, "What is wrong with my phone? It has been making these noises for a month." She didn't know what a text message was. So then, of course, I show her, and she's like, "Oh, I didn't know you felt that way about me." Point is, 6 years difference. That's it. That's how fast the generations change. Gen Y, by my definition, starts with the birth years 1977 to 1995. Again, Gen Y's birth years start in 1977 and continue to 1995. You'll notice those dates may not agree with what other people tell you, but let me tell you where I come up with them based on my research. When you look at what shapes a generation, you take these 4 factors, but kind of the wild card factor are generational defining moments. Those events that truly shape a generation. And if you look at Gen Y, here's what you get. The first one, Challenger explosion. Who remembers that? I remember it because it happened while I was in elementary school. They wheeled the TV out. We all got to miss class. And we all got to watch it. I'll never forget it. Challenger explosion was the beginning. The second one, fall of the Berlin Wall. The third one, the midpoint, the Gulf War, which Generation Y watched on television over dinner. Remember the green lights? And the capstone event, the event that marks, in my mind, in my research, the end of Generation Y, September the 11th, 2001. That event is Generation Y's JFK. That is our where were you when. For me, I was in Los Angeles at the Los Angeles airport trying to fly out with my father, We got stuck there for 3 days. The fighter jets were flying over, and I will never, for the rest of my life, forget it. Knowing those moments, what do you come up with? Birth years 77 to 95. Because even if you were born in 98, 99, 97, how can you truly process September the 11th? In fact, remember what they tell you to do? Turn off your TV if you have little kids. Because they're showing it over and over again. So those are the birth years I use. With that, you come up with 79.8 million people in that generation. About 80 million. That's important because it's roughly the size of the baby boomers who will soon be either exiting the workforce or transitioning into a different role. One of the things that's powerful when we talk just about Gen Y in particular in the workforce, when you look at the average age at which they enter, one of the things you start to see is they're waiting longer and longer to enter the workforce, which means by the time they actually start and have a real job, they have significantly less work experience than their bosses typically did at that age. So we assume they should know some of these things, but that assumption is based on us being in a different place when we started. Baby boomers believe there are no shortcuts. There are no shortcuts to success. You absolutely, positively, unequivocally have to pay your dues. Well, you know me as a Gen Y-er, I go and ask my dad, Dad, what's the shortcut to success? What's the secret to success? How do I be successful like you? Hard work. That's not a secret. You take all that together, some of the things you immediately figure out, baby boomers actually measure loyalty. When baby boomers talk about loyalty, they are talking about years. They're talking about tenure. And if you ask them, most of them have a number. Well, what would you consider a loyal employee? They've been here for at least 5 years, or some amount. You ask somebody in Gen Y, maybe even Gen X, what do you consider a loyal employee? Somebody who puts forth their best effort. But for how long? Well, for however long they're there. I mean, you told us, if that's a job, do it the best you can. So I did, for a week. Can I get a reference? Generation Y needs continuous feedback, and we need it in short bursts. An example, if your organization only gives annual reviews, you can change their name. Exit interview. Because we won't be there. We need feedback on a regular basis. Here's where the disconnect is. Baby boomers, as managers, when you have an employee that's doing a good job, baby boomers take a hands-off approach. They don't want to meddle in their stuff. You're doing a good job. Gen Y isn't getting feedback on an ongoing basis. We think we're doing what? A bad job. And what you find is we'll quit only at the exit interview to realize that you thought we were doing a good job. But we've already committed to travel to Europe for the week on our credit card. One of the ways I like to talk about it is baby boomers use paragraphs and big words and flowery things. We don't know what they mean. We're clicking on thesaurus all the time. We talk about Generation Y. Their most important day at work at your organization, the day that pretty much makes or breaks whether or not they stick with you long term, is their first day of work. So the key for you is, what can you do on that first day that makes it unforgettable? When they show up on that first day, you present them with the box. They open it in front of you. In that box are their business cards. Already printed, name spelled correctly. It not only says to them they're a part of the team, we've planned ahead for you, but it gives you the opportunity to say you are a professional now. And now that you're a professional, there are some expectations that go along with that. And then you can go into your conversation. Here's what I know. Generation Y will take that business card, and who is the first person they're going to give that business card to? Their mom, yes! And for many of them, when she comes and picks them up, they're going to just give it to her.